Hello and welcome to another exam paper walkthrough. So we're done with the Summer 2023 series, which means that as teachers we can officially start to publish and release the Summer 22. We as teachers keep them secure. For a year we often use them as mocks for our current Year 11s, so we don't release these papers. But now that the Summer 22 series is done and dusted, I can do a video walkthrough of the Summer 22 papers. So I'm starting today with the 1F paper. Please do download a copy of it first of all, attempt the paper and use the video to help you through it. Okay, so this is the paper, obviously paper 1F, so it's non-calculator. This will be excellent revision ahead of any exam series really. I think past papers are the best form of revision other than the predicted papers that we do. So we will begin. Okay, question 1 then. So change 40 centimeters into millimeters. Well, 1 centimeter is going to be equal to 10 millimeters. So 40 centimeters is going to be equal to 400 centimeters. 400 millimeters, sorry. So 400 millimeters. Okay, question 2, simplify E plus E plus E plus E. So we add them together, so we've got 4 lots of them, so it becomes 4E. Okay, question 4. On the grid, reflect the shaded triangle in the mirror line. So the mirror line is this line here. It's already marked on for us. So this point here is currently 3 squares away on the right. So it goes 3 squares on the left. And then that becomes our shape. Okay. Okay, question 4. Write down the value of 6 in the number 16,007. So 16,007. The 6 is 6,000. Question 5. Write these numbers in order of size, starting with the smallest. So we need them all in the same format, so I'm going to convert them all into decimals. I'm going to say that's 0.5 and that's 0.45. So when we order them, that's going to be our smallest. We're then looking at 0.5, which is a half, and then finally 0.55. Okay, question 6. Pictogram gives information about the number of hours of sunshine on Saturday and Sunday. Work out the number of hours of sunshine on Saturday. So we're using the key. 1 sunshine represents 2 hours. So on Saturday we had 1, 2, 3, 4 lots of 2. So 4 times by 2, which is going to give us 8. So we've got 8 hours of sunshine. So question 7. Simon buys some candles. Each costs £2. Simon pays with a £20 note. He gets £6 change. Work out the number of candles Simon buys. So we're saying he spent 20 minus 6. And that needs to be divided by 2. So that's going to be 14 divided by 2, which is going to give us 7 candles. So question 8, the bar chart shows information about the total rainfall each month for 4 months in a city. In May, the rainfall was 35 centimetres. In June, the total rainfall was 20 centimetres. I use this information to complete the bar chart. So you're obviously going to use a ruler for this. I'm going to insert shapes. So I'm going to adjust my height in a second. So I need my first one to go up to 35. And I need my second bar to go up to 20. So that's going to be my 2 bars. Rupert says in February there was 15.5 centimetres of rainfall because the bar is halfway above 15. Explain why Rupert is incorrect. So Rupert is incorrect because each square represents 5, not 1. So each square represents an increase in 5. So February was 17.5. Let's just double check that. February, halfway between 15 and 20 would be 17.5. Okay, question 9. Here is a sequence of patterns made from grey square tiles. On the grid below, draw a pattern number 5. So we're going to have 5 squares and 5 squares. So I'm going to use that. So I need to go 5 down. And 5 across. So that's going to be what my shape would look like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that will do. Part B, complete the table. So we've got a number of squares in pattern 5 is going to be, we can count the squares, or we can say that these patterns are going up in 2s. So the next one should be 9, and we can just double check. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the next one will be 11. Question 10. In Norway last year, the lowest temperature was -15. In Norway last year, the highest temperature was 42 degrees C. Greater than the lowest temperature. Work out the height of Norway that Norway reached last year. So in effect, we need to do -15 plus 42. Now, to make that easier for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap those the other way around. So reorder them to 42 minus 15, and then that becomes much easier to do. So 2 take away 5 we can't do, so we take 1 from this column, or borrow 1 from this column. 12 take away 5 is, or exchange is probably the better phrasing. 12 take away 5 is going to be 7, and then 3 take away 1 would be 2. So we're looking at 27 as our difference in temperature. Okay, at the end of October, Fiona's electricity meter reads 88,738 kilowatt hours. At the end of November, her electricity meter read, and then we're given the second value. Each kilowatt hour of electricity Fiona uses 16 pence. Work out how much Fiona pays. If we extract the information, so in effect we need to work out, using these two values, the amount that she uses. Sorry about that. So I need to subtract the 2 meter readings and then times that by 16. So I'll do that. I'm going to set it up as a column subtraction. So 89198, and from that I need to subtract 88738. Okay, so 8 take away 8 is going to be 0. 9 take away 3 is going to be 6. 1 take away 7 we can't do, so we exchange 1 from here. So 11 take away 7 is going to be 4. So that's the amount of kilowatt hours that they use. We then need to times that by 16. So I'm going to convert this into pounds as I do it. So I'm going to do 460 times by 0.16. Right, to do this, I'm going to change this to make it an easier multiplication for me. I'm going to treat it as 46 times by 1.6. And then if I do that multiplication, I can ignore the decimals while I do the multiplication. So 46 times by 16. 6 times 6 is going to give me 36. 6 times 4 would be 24, plus the 3 would be 27. And then times in by 1, so 10. So I put 0 in my units column, and then 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 4 is 4. Then I add my two numbers together. So I've got 3. 7 plus 6 is going to be 13, and then 2 plus 4 plus 1 would be 7. So the digits are going to be 7, 3, 3. I ignored one decimal. My question had one decimal digit, so my answer must have one as well. So I'm looking at 73.6. So £73.60. Okay, question 12. We're adding some fractions, so work out 5/12 plus 1/6. So we need to put them over we can only add fractions when they're over the same denominator. So we need the lowest common multiple of 12 and 6, which is going to be 12. So I only need to convert one of the fractions to be an equivalent fraction over 12. To do that, I need to times that by 2. So the numerator would also become 2. And then we can add the numerators when we have them over the same denominator. So that's going to be just 7 out of 12. For question B, so give your answer as a fraction in its simplest form. So I'm going to change pen just to help me with this. I will always simplify before I would multiply. The reason being it just keeps my numbers more straightforward. Some people don't like this method though. So I would cancel by 5 first of all. So that goes in twice and that goes in once. And then when I multiply that, my numbers are much more simpler to multiply. Sorry. If you didn't spot that, so I'll call that method 1. If you didn't spot that and you're not happy with that as a method, your alternative method is, and it doesn't make much of a difference, multiply numerators together, multiply denominators together, and then simplify. And then my method eliminates this need to simplify as a final step. So 5 goes into both numbers, it goes 3 times into 15, and it goes 16 times into 80. But 80 divided by 5 is much more complicated than my method. Okay, question 13. There are 15 sweets in a jar. 4 of the sweets are red. Jill takes at random a sweet from the jar. Write down the probability that the sweet is red. So we've got 4 sweets out of 15 sweets, so it's going to be just 4 out of 15. And the second part, there are only green counters and blue counters in a bag. The counter is taken at random from the bag. The probability that the counter is green is 0.3. Find the probability that the counter is blue. Well, the two probabilities need to add up to 1. So we're looking at 1 minus 0.3, which is going to give us 0.7. Okay, question 14. Work out the value of y when x is equal to 3. So y is going to be equal to 6 times by 4 minus 5. So 6 times by 4 is going to be 24, and 24 minus 5 is going to be 19. Okay, question 15. Work out an estimate for the value of 92 times by 1.63. You must show your working. So I'm going to say that 92... I'm going to apply it up here. So 92 is approximately 90, and then 1.6 is approximately 2. So that's going to be equal to 180. And then given that 2.96 times by 3.2 is 9.472, find the value of. So we've actually got, so I mentioned this briefly earlier. If you look, we've got 3 decimal digits here, which creates 3 decimal digits here. So we're going to have the same digits because we've got the same numbers. So 9472. And then we've only got 1 decimal digit here, so we'll only have 1 in our answer. So 947.2. Question 16. Savio leaves his home at 7:30 to drive to work. He drives a distance of 50 miles. Savio thinks he drives an average speed of 40 miles per hour. If Savio is correct, work out what time he would arrive at work. So if we look at the time then, time is going to be equal to distance divided by speed. So that's going to be equal to 5/4, which is going to be 1 1/4 hours, which is 1 hour and 15 minutes. So if he's correct, if we take his starting time and then add on 1 hour and 15 minutes, that would mean that he would get to work at 8:45. So that's my estimate for his time of arrival. That's my answer for he should arrive at work at 8:45. In fact, Savio average speed is greater than 40 miles per hour. How does that affect your answer to part A? So he would arrive at work quicker. So my answer would be higher or later. Higher. Let's go. So let's just change that. He would arrive at work quicker. So my answer. So oh, my pen's going a bit crazy. So he would arrive earlier Okay, question 17. 72 people did a test. 20 of the 32 adults who did the test passed. 6 of the children who did the test failed. Use this information to predict frequency tree. So 72 people did the test, so 72 can go in that part there. 22 of the 32 adults, so 32 adults, and 20 of them passed. 6 of the children failed the test. So there we go. That's everything I can fill in from the question. Then I'm going to go, and my second level is going to be bits that I work at. So if 32 passed and 32 were adults and 72 took the test, then that must mean that 40 of them were children. If 20 adults passed, then that means that 12 adults failed. And then if 6 children failed, then 34 adults passed. Part B, one of these people is picked at random. Find the probability that the person is an adult who failed the test. So these are words to catch you out. So one of the people is picked at random. So that means that our denominator is going to be 72. So our denominator is going to be 72 because we're picking from the whole sample. Find the probability that the person is an adult who failed the test. So that gives us the instruction of the group. So the adult who failed the test is this value here. So it's going to be 12 out of 72. I'm actually going to do that over here because it can be simplified. So both of those numbers are going to have a 12 in common. So 12 goes once into 12 and it would go 6 times into 72. But I don't think you'd lose a mark if you didn't simplify that. Find the probability that the person is an adult who failed the test. Let me just have a quick look at the mark scheme. Yeah, so I've just looked at the mark scheme, and the mark scheme does say that 12 over 72 is fine. Okay, question 18. Here are a list of ingredients for making 10 scones. Mia wants to make 25 scone. Work out how much sugar she needs. So we want to make, 25 divided by 10 is going to be 2.5. So we want 2.5 times the amount of sugar. So 40 times by 2.5. I'm going to do it this way. 40 times by 2 would be 80. And then 40 times by half would be 20. So if we add those together, we get 100 grams. So 100 grams of sugar is needed. Okay, increase 20%. Increase 240 by 20%. On a non-calculator paper, I use a pretty standard method for this. I would say 100% of the number is 240. So 10% of the number is going to be knock a 0 off, 24. So 20% is going to be equal to 48. So 120% is going to be found by adding this and this together. So this and this together. So it's going to be 288. Okay, question 20. Students struggle with this in the exam. They struggled visualizing it. The maths in it isn't particularly complicated. The diagram shows three identical rectangles A, B, and C. 5/8 of rectangle A is shaded. 9/11 of rectangle C is shaded. Work out the fraction of rectangle B that is shaded. So in effect, what you need to say is unshaded of rectangle A is going to be 1 minus 5/8, so it's going to be 3/8. For rectangle B, we're doing rectangle C, 1 minus 9/11 is going to be 2/11. So we want to do 1 minus that. Well, I'm going to add these together. That tells us the amount that's been removed from rectangle B. So if I do 3/8 plus 2/11, I need to, adding fractions, I need to put them over the same denominator, so that's going to be 88. So the first fraction needs to be times by 11, so it would be 33, and the second fraction needs to be times by 8, so it would be 16. And when I add those together, then I'm going to get 49/88. So I need to subtract that from rectangle B, so I just need to do 1 minus 49/88, which is going to give me 39 out of 88. And that's how we do that question. Okay, question 21. Here are the ages in years of 15 people. Show this information in a stem and leaf diagram. So we're given quite a bit of space, and then we're given a stem and leaf diagram, space for our ordered stem and leaf diagram at the bottom. Stem and leaf diagrams always tend to be 3-mark questions if you're drawing them from scratch. You pick up the first one for drawing an unordered one or for drawing a complete ordered one. I'm going to start with an unordered one. So essentially I'm splitting all my numbers into a stem, which is the tens part, and a leaf, which is the units part. So I'm going to start with an unordered one. So my smallest value is in the tens and my largest value is in the fours. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, being dyslexic, I struggle going across. I find it much easier working downwards, so I tend to do it row at a time. But that's just my preference. So if I'm doing this, 19 becomes a 9 there, 27 becomes a 7 there, and 17 becomes a 7 there. My next row, 28 becomes an 8 there, 37 a 7 there, and 45 a 5 there. Then my third column, so I've got a 9, a 5, and a 4, and a 7. Then my fourth row, I've got a 3, a 7, and a 5. And then my final column, I've got a 7, a 7, and a 6. So that's my unordered stem and leaf diagram. My job now is to put the numbers in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So those in order would be a 7, then a 9. These in order, so my smallest value here is looking like a 5, and I've got 2 of them. So I'm going to cross them out. Then I've got a 6, just 1 6. Then I've got 1, 2, 3 7s, 1, 2, 3 7s, an 8 and a 9. Then my 3s, I've got a 7, no, sorry, I've got a 3, then 2 7s, and then my final one is 5 and a 7. And the only thing that's missing now is my key. I always tend to start with my first value, just to make it nice and straightforward for my examiner, for my marker. So equals 17, and then I tend to put the word of 17 what? 17 ages, so 17 years. 22. The centimetre grid shows the plan and front elevation of a cylinder. Work out the volume of the cylinder, given your answer in terms of pi. Well, the volume of a cylinder is going to be equal to pi r squared times by h. So we need to work out the radius first of all. So the radius is the centre to the outside. So the radius is 3 centimetres. So pi times by 3 squared times by the height. Well, the height, you need to make sure that we don't confuse the height with the we need to make sure that we don't confuse the height with that length there, which would be the diameter of the circle. The diameter of the circle is 6, so that would be the diameter of the circle. So this is going to be the height, which we've got 2, 4, 5. So the height is equal to 5 centimeters. So times by 5. So that's going to become pi times by 9 times by 5. So that's going to be 9 times 5 is 45. So 45 pi. That should be cubed. Okay, question 23, solve. So we've got an inequality symbol here. I treat this just like an equal sign. So solving the equation, I would add 27 on both sides. So that would give me 7x has to be less than 8 plus 27 is going to be 35. And then divide both sides by 7. So x is going to be less than 5. Okay, question 24. Write 124 as a product of its prime factors. So we're going to use a factor tree to break this number down. So I will always try and take off my smallest prime factor. So that's going to be 2 in this case. 2 times by, well, half of this number is 62. Then I can take 2 out as another factor. 2 times 31. And 31 is a prime number. So we stop there. So those are our prime factors. If we're writing it as a product of its prime factors, I would call that 2. So I'd write that as, if my pen will work, I'll try and write that as 2 squared times by 31. 25. The delivery company has a total of 160 cars and vans. The number of cars to the number of vans is 3 to 7. Each car and each van uses electricity, diesel or petrol. 1/8 of the cars are electrical. 25% of the cars are diesel. The rest of the cars use petrol. Work out the number of cars using petrol. You must show all your working. Okay, so I'm going to do this in 2 parts really. So cars to vans, we're using a ratio of 3 to 7. And we know that the total is going to be 160. Actually, I'm going to put the 160 there. Or try to. So we've got a total of 10 parts. So we've got 160. So each part is going to be 160. 160 divided by 10, which is going to be 16. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to come back to that shortly. Then we're just looking at cars. So the cars are either electric, diesel, or petrol. So we know that there are 1/8 are electric. We know that 25% are diesel. What we don't know is the number that are petrol. And I was considering adding these together, which would be absolutely fine, but I'm going to come back to this. So if we know that there are 16 for each, 3 times 16 is going to be my next sum. So 3 times 16 is going to be 48. So we know that there are 48 cars. If 1/8 of them are electric, that's going to be that's going to be 6. If 25% of them are diesel, that's going to be 25% of that, halve it and halve it again, and that's going to be 12. So the number that are petrol, well, so far we've got 18 and we've got 48 in total, so that means that our missing value there is going to be 30. So 30. Question 26 then. Write 1.63 as an ordinary number. So when we do into a minus 3, it just means that we put 3 zeros at the front of the number. So that's going to be my answer. Write this number in standard form. So we want to put a decimal point between the 4 and the 3 to make it a number between 1 and 10. And then it's times 10 to the, and then we've moved it from there. So we've moved it 3, 4, 5 places, and it's a large number. So that's going to be our standard form number. Part C, work out 4 times 10 to the 3 times by 6 times 10 to the minus 5. So I tend to break my number part and my index part into separate parts. So 4 times 6 is going to be 24, times by 10 to the, and then we add these powers, so it would be minus 2. Then as a final step, this isn't in standard form. We need to, in effect, multiply it by 10. So it becomes 2.4 times 10 to the minus 1, sorry. We add 1 to that power. So 2.4 times by 10 to the minus 1. Question 27. Here is a regular hexagon and a regular pentagon. Work out the size of the angle marked with the X. So for this, in effect, what I'm going to do is work out the exterior angle of both of them, and then just add them together. So the exterior angle of a hexagon is going to be 360 divided by 6. So that would be 60. And the exterior angle of a pentagon is going to be 360 divided by 5, which is going to be 45. And then we just need, so we've got 60-degree angle there, 45-degree angle there. So X is going to be equal to 60 plus 45, which gives us 105. Question 28. Complete the table for the values of y is equal to x squared minus 3x plus 1. So not the nicest of questions on a non-calc, much more straightforward on a calc because we can use our table function. So in effect we're substituting these values in, and if I just kind of talk you through an example, if I put 0 in, 0 squared is 0, minus 0, so y would be equal to 1, which gives us that value there. And then likewise, when I put 1 in, 1 squared is 1, minus 3, plus 1 gives you minus 1. So we're going to do that for the other values. So I'm going to start with my positive values just because they're slightly easier. So 2 squared minus 3 times 2 minus 6 plus 1 is going to be 4 minus 6 would be minus 2. Minus 2 plus 1 is going to be minus 1 again. Then I'm looking at 3. So 3 squared is 9. Minus 3 times 3, so minus 9 plus 1. So we're going to have 1 as our value there, which makes sense because we double up. And then if I put 4 in, 16 minus 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is going to give me 5. Should have really put 1 there. So 5 there. And then if I work backwards, we expect this to be 5, but we'll find out. So minus 1 squared would be 1. Minus 3 times minus 1 becomes plus 3, and then plus 1, so that would be 5. Okay, on the grid below, draw the graph. So when x is minus 1, y was 5. So we mark that point, 0 and 1. 1 and minus 1. 2 and minus 1. 3 and 1. And then 4 and 5. Our job then is to join that up with as smooth a curve as we can. So when I'm doing this, I like to keep my wrist on the inside of the curve, so I'm just moving my screen around. So that's obviously not worked particularly well. Let's try that again. Right, my hand keeps catching. So let's try one more time. So I'm sure you can draw a much better, smoother curve than me. So I'm doing that on my screen. That's not particularly a good one. So I'm just going to redraw that using a tool within Word. So if I draw that again, so I want to insert a wavy line. So if I go, there's my first point, there's my second point, third point, fourth, fifth, double click on the final one. So a much better curve there. So let me just change that to, there we go. So obviously you're going to try and get it as smooth as you can. And then use your graph to estimate the solutions of the equation x squared minus 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. So just double check that that's the same equation. So it is. So in effect, we need to look at where the line is y is equal to 0. So we're really seeing where that crosses the x-axis. So where those two cross is going to be that point there and that point there. So looking from my graph, trying to read as accurately as I can, that looks like 0.4. So x is equal to 0.4, or x is equal to 2.6. Okay, here are two cubes, A and B, so they're cubes. Cube A has a mass of 81 grams, cube B has a mass of 128 grams. Work out the density of cube A to the density of cube B. Give your answer in the form A, column B, where A and B are integers. Okay, so I'm going to start by working out the volume of them both. So the volume of A is going to be equal to 3 cubed, so that's going to be 9. And the volume of B is going to be equal to 4 cubed, which is going to be 16 times 4 is going to be 64. So I've got the volume of them both. I now need to work out the density of them both. So density is equal to mass divided by volume. So the density of A is going to be 81 divided by 9. So it's going to be 9. And the density of B, not V, B. Density of B is going to be equal to 60, wrong way around, 128 divided by 4. So 128 divided by 64, so that's going to be just spotted a mistake in my working up here. So 9 cubed isn't 3 cubed isn't 9, 3 cubed is 27, that's 3 squared. So that should have been 27. So that should have been 27. And then 91 divided by 27 is 3. Okay, back to that. 128 divided by 64 is 2. So I've got my density of them both. So density of them both is going to be 3 to 2. Okay, question 30. Divided maths teachers, this one did. So we knew that exact trig was going to be on the paper. And it was just dropped in at question 30, a 1-mark question. Write down the exact value of 30 degrees. So that's the easiest one to remember. So that was a half. But if you needed to remember it from the triangles, in effect, we imagine that we've got an equilateral triangle that was 2 by 2 by 2. So that length is 2, that length is 1. And then we're trying to work out that would be a 30-degree angle. And then using trig, that would be the opposite, that would be the hypotenuse. So we're using the sine ratio, so sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So sine of 30 is equal to 1 over 2. Okay, and that brings us to the end of that paper. That was a really nice paper. If you just so you're aware for your additional revision, this is kind of the skills tested for each question. So if you found, let's say, question 21 particularly difficult, that was stem and leaf diagrams. So that document there can be quite useful. I'll leave it on the screen. So I'll do 10 seconds on each. And then bottom half. And that can help you for any specific revision. So if you found a particular question challenging, that's the topic that you need to look at in a bit more detail. I will link that to the, I will make sure that I link, well, I will chapter the paper by those topics. So I've already started to prepare that. So thank you very much for your time in listening. I hope you found it useful. Don't forget, if you like it, subscribe. Good luck, and I will see you soon.